have already seen a black president. We've already seen a black first family. Now we want to know what it is going to mean. Symbolism is not enough now. It's substance. And if there's no substance, then we've gotten over the aura of the first.
Now, those comments, along with others at the National Action Network, were dripping with kind of grievance. They led me to pose this question yesterday. Today is the anniversary of the assassination of the Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr. I was thinking, like, if he were alive today, I wonder what he'd think about such dismissive comments and about a Democrat Party that believes it can regain power by living in a constant state of protest or racial hatred and denial. Now, for highlighting how the manufactured outrage by some of the social justice warriors is creating racial division and hatred, I was attacked. I was just asking a question. Well, kind of in the response to proving my point, aren't they? They're not interested in a real conversation about improving the lives of real people, the state of the economy for African Americans in this country, talking about criminal justice reform, school choice, all the things that conservatives love, the life issue. Instead, they attempt to demonize anyone who rejects divisive, negative way of thinking. Well, they want to shut down speech. They don't believe in open dialogue. Joining me now is a woman who does, Alveda King, niece of Martin Luther King, Jr. Alveda has the type of stuff you're seeing from Jesse Jackson and all the Democrats, one after the other, kind of bowing down to his, his identity over the last few days. I just raised the question because it's so negative. It's almost like even Obama's presidency was kind of dismissed by Al Sharpton saying, yeah, he did some good things, but now it's on to the real work.
Isn't that amazing that Al Sharpton would say that? He forgets many things quickly. I think he forgot that Martin Luther King Jr. was a prophet. I think Jesse Jackson forgot that too. And in the spirit of Jesus Christ, it sounds like socialism, I guess, to say feed the poor and take care of the hungry. But that's the perspective of Martin Luther King in a prophetic voice, not a political voice. Yeah,
so some of your relatives, you guys were tweeting back at each other, intra-family conversations about this. But you never know what anyone would think. It would be fun to think what Thomas Jefferson would think. But it is... And go back, I was watching a lot of his speeches before the show and going back and watching. And he was sounding more favorable to socialism and socialist ideals. I want to read part of one of his speeches. I think we have the full screen when he talked about socialism. Well, this was a description of him, but Dr. King was anti-war, anti-capitalism, and pro-socialism. He saw capitalism as exploitative by nature, an economic structure that bred poverty and injustice. He spoke of his desire to fundamentally change society several times into a democratic form of socialism, which the workers collectively own and direct profit from the businesses in which they work. He saw capitalism as a method of organization that produced an extremely wealthy upper class, but left huge numbers in dire poverty. That was Garrett Griffin's book. But the actual speeches from King, where he discussed the need to fundamentally restructure the economic system in the United States. So maybe, the push towards socialism kind of is in the tradition of King?
Well, but that's not exactly socialism, because in restructuring that system, he would want to see African Americans today own land, own property, work, contribute to society. So he would not necessarily have supported just handouts without hand up and equipping people to fish forever rather than having to fish for a day. So that's why I say his socialism was more mindful of Christ rather than a political structure or system. But as far as perpetual protest, he was sowing hope, seeds of hope. One day this will end and we'll all have something together. That's the Martin Luther King Jr. that I actually know.
And also working with people in both parties, which he knew you had to do, which I also think is sad. In the civil rights movement today, you didn't have a lot of diversity.
It has to be either or, and if you're an African American, everybody just insists that you need to be a Democrat, and that's not really true. Martin Luther King Jr. was an independent. His dad started out as a Republican, but he was an independent, and people don't remember that either. And so that's why when Sharpton just dismisses it and forgets, well, we can't forget. If we forget our history, we'll repeat the bad part, but then we'll forget to do the good part over again.
Alveda, and also, of course, the pro-life community you do so much great work for. That's another conversation that just isn't had.
Civil rights for the unborn.
Not had.
And I'm so glad to see more and more being done. And we really need to end racism, abortion, and infanticide from my perspective.
Well, and that's something that, of course, as you call him, Daddy King, is in his course.
He was always pro-life. Daddy King from life. From birth until when he left the planet, supported life. Yeah.
Alveda King, so great to have you. Sorry if I caused any family squabbles.
It'll be okay. We love each other. We'll be all right.
God bless. Well,